Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week, we continue our series of Foggy terrors with the 1972 British film Tower of Evil. This is episode 361. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So, warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, publisher at Castle Bridge Media, home of the Castle of Horror anthology. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. Also in Austin, Mr. Drew Edwards is the writer-creator of the long-running underground comic Halloween Man, currently published by Comixology. He is a Best Writer, Ringo nominee, Austin Chronicle Best of Austin Award winner, and a member of the PEN America Fellowship. Say hello, Drew.
Comixology. Hello.
I mean, I've given a lot of money to Comixology. I've
You and a lot of other people, pal.
yeah. I mean, I almost don't want to think about it when I look at like how many comics I've bought through Comixology, including yours. So yeah. But if you wind up other places, I'll follow you there. And it's
enough said.
Enough said. And finally, also in Denver, color commentary from the one and only beautiful and wonderful Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello.
Hello, and thank you.
You're quite welcome. Okay, Tower of Evil, which is yet another one of those films that I have just foisted on you guys because it spoke to me. Tower of Evil, also known by the titles Horror on Snape Island and Beyond the Fog, supposedly in the United States, and Horror of Snape Island in Canada. I love Beyond the Fog because it means that they titled it that. No, it couldn't be to be believed to be a sequel to The Fog. Yes, it was. I looked this up, and it was in Ad Nauseum, which is a book of newspaper ads about horror movies. And Horror of Snape Island, which came out in 1972, was released literally 10 years later in the American markets as Beyond the Fog, so that people might think it is a sequel to The Fog.
Well, then it's appropriate that we're doing this.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know how you would. Once the movie starts, though, I think the veil is lit. The fog is lifted.
The fog is lifted.
By then,
I mean,
you've already paid your money and driven. Right. And found a place to park your car and tilted it upwards and turned off so you're stuck.
Yeah, because the mod world of Tower of Evil,
yes,
does not look like the world of The Fog.
Well, it's like a early 70s versus early 80s kind of
right. What I'm saying is selling it that way, and then you pop your seat, you plop down in your seat and you have your popcorn and you're like, wait, we are not in the 80s. That's for sure.
This is right. Well, this is not Andrea Barbeau.
Also, in the 1980s, they released it in Germany as Tower of the Living Corpses or Terror Tower of the Zombies. So because it was all about zombie, there was a zombie craze, and so in order to justify it, they had the catatonic chick talk about zombies whenever the camera wasn't on her. Which I think it's pretty funny.
So they're saying, "What do you remember?" And she goes, "There were zombies on the island."
Yeah.
That's astonishing. That's just sort of that's amazing.
I just picture like a litany of like Forrest Gump, zombie salad, zombie soup, zombie. Like just
or like different professions, like zombie lawyers, zombie doctors, zombie dentists.
Yeah. Like, why is this? Because people love zombies. Just go with it.
Just go with it. This poor woman inside the recording booth. She's got a script in front of her, and she's got to read it. All right. So, all right. Let's do it this way. Let's start with Julia to get our opening thoughts, and then we'll go into whatever there is. And I'm looking forward to justifying making you guys spend your time with this film. Julia, Drew, Tony, and then I'll go. Julia, what are your opening thoughts on Tower of Evil?
I did not love this movie. I found it to be kind of dumb, and even the things that were like, even what it was trying to do, I didn't feel like it did it well. So it was
Mhm.
trying to be sexy, but it missed the mark on being sexy. Like, oh, okay, we're going to open with a bunch of nude dead bodies, but no reason why they should be naked. And then we're going to have people who all have sex with each other, but like they've had sex with each other before now, and they're not swingers because that would be what, too risque. They just cheat on each other. It's two couples that have each cheated on each other with the other person and the other couple. And then you've got like a sex scene, but it's super awkward and weird. I don't know. It was like I'm like, okay, so you're really missing the mark on sexy. You're missing the mark on scary because there's a lot of times when it could have been scarier than it was. But but it does have I like the set. I like the studio, the set is really cool, and it was some good thoughts, like some good ideas. I feel like they didn't execute it super well though, unfortunately.
Okay, that's a great kickoff. That's really great. Drew, first of all, you're a horror fan. Have you seen this movie before?
Nope, this was my first time seeing it. The rare horror film that I haven't seen, but
Love
they
it.
do exist. But I definitely liked it more than Julia. I thought it was an interesting movie it's sort of like a transitional movie because it sets and sort of the atmosphere and the fact that the cast is largely academics
Yeah.
makes it feel a
I
lot
think you need
like
to put that in quotes.
No, they are. They're a
they're
bunch of
supposed
scientists.
to be.
They're allegedly academic. That's why I said in
Allegedly.
quotes.
We'll go with allegedly. But all stuff made it feel more like either a Hammer or a Amicus movie, but
Mm.
then it's sort of predicting the sex and death formula of the Friday the 13th movies like a decade earlier. Like it's got that, gore and nudity, and there's of course a lot of teenagers that get killed in the opening scenes. So from that perspective, I found it to be really interesting that this is kind of a transitional horror movie from like where horror movies were to where they are going in the decade to come. I will say that I do feel like at the same time there was a couple of logic lapses that bothered me, which we'll get into.
I can't wait. That sounds great.
But also I found it to be, even though it was atmospheric and it was entertaining, I found it to be slight for the runtime. Like it's not a long movie, and yet like it felt very like there was like it felt like there was just stuff to thrown in there so it would kind of cross the finish line of being feature length, and that bothered me, but overall I thought it was a fun movie.
Wonderful, thank you. Tony, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I wanted to like it more than I did. I agree with everything Drew and said, and I think Julia hit on a bunch of stuff that's actually true. It doesn't quite gel, I think is the problem, but it's got a lot of cool sets.
Yeah.
And there's interesting stuff that it's like just shy of what it could have been in some ways. And that's not really fair to evaluate a movie like that, but when you watch it overall, it just kind of felt like there's the makings of something cooler here, and it's where you could make a pretty neat like clip show out of this, like take clips and go, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool, but
that's an interesting
never
observation. Yeah.
gelled for me, because and it's a shame because it's got all this like cool stuff like ancient cults and lighthouse and a secret family, it's got even like secret family dark shadows stuff in it, right?
Yeah.
That's like interesting, and legend, and things, they moved the lighthouse, and wow, why do you move a lighthouse? Like, whoa, things happen, all this stuff that's like, wow, okay, neat, like this has some stuff here, I like this, but it's all over the map when it all comes together, and that's kind of a shame. And it's a weird mix also of everybody's, people's motivations are weird, and I think it's also not as consistent in, you have somebody going, oh, I never cheat on my husband, hey, but I don't know, like I don't know, it contradicts itself a lot, it feels like.
Wait, back up on that one. I don't remember any. I think the women both fool around. in
No,
this.
no.
They
At the
both-
beginning, the hot young lad is hitting on her. She goes, "Oh, I never cheat on my husband," and
True.
That
in
was the
front,
wink,
at
wink,
least not in
nudge, nudge
front of
thing.
him, but
Right.
Right.
like,
But she had already said, though,
That she slept with the other
earlier
dude.
in a
Yeah.
conversation that they had
well, I
already slept
know,
with
but
one
it's
others. Yeah,
that,
I'm with you.
again. This is why it's like
Yeah. I'm with you.
kind of loosey goosey on a lot of things.
Yeah.
They never. Well, it it has a lot of what kind of B movies and schlocky movies and that we've seen have. Like never let a scene where you can titillate or horrify get in the way of the plot.
Right.
Right? It has that kind of like it has that feeling.
Yeah.
Well, we said this, but now's about the time that we should have some nudity because that'll get some butts in the seats, right?
I guess so.
And hey, if it works for you, I mean, I think this was, if I remember correctly, what I was reading was successful. But watching it on a weekend and just kind of taking it all in, I wanted to like it more than I did because I like a lot of movies that are similar.
Yeah. That's fair. So why did I fall in this movie? I discovered this film. Thank you very much, Tony. I discovered this film a couple years ago because it was kind of making the rounds on some of the early ad-supported video services, and I'd never heard of it. And so basically, it's one of those movies where it's not as good as the description of it is. And I don't mean like I read a description of it and I was like, oh, that sounds great. I mean, if you watch it and then you think back bullets of what's in this, hidden caves with statues of Baal and an expedition of scientists to a creepy fog enshrouded island because they're chasing after, there must be more treasure because there's a rare Phoenician sword that they found poked through a naked hippie. I mean,
Right.
that's like all of that together.
A nude knife attack at the beginning.
Yeah. And I apologize. Robin Asquith, when he gets run through with the sword, is not naked. But everybody else is. Robin Asquith, who I was mentioning to Drew, was the star of a whole bunch of films that could only have been created in the early 1970s. They were called the Confessions series, Confessions of a Window Washer, Confessions of a Pop Star, and they basically involved a 20-something Robin Asquith taking jobs. Oh, I'm the window washer, and then like all the neighborhood women are chasing him, and he spends a lot of time like swinging around on ladders and getting buckets of paint thrown on him. They are, and there's nudity in those movies. I mean, they are just demented, dumb, probably not all that great films today. But I remember Robin Asquith being like a real, he was around everywhere at the time. There's flashbacks. I mean, this thing is chock, considering how bad it often feels. It is chock full of stuff. Drew, I agree with you that it looks like an Amicus movie because Hammer did whatever the hell Hammer was doing, but Amicus stuff took place in the 60s and 70s, so there's always plenty of like green and
It's got a bit of Corman in it too.
Yeah. Yes. Oh yeah, a lot of that tempera paint, blood.
Just like set feel as well, like the way that sets are kind of designed and put together.
The world of the island, the sets of the island. This is one of those times when you feel like you're sad that they probably, you tear down a set when you're done with it unless it gets reused by somebody quickly. And I'm like, this looks like a set that could be used for 3-4 things, because they got the dock and the caves and just everything. Anyway, so
I feel like
yeah.
When you talk, hold on, I'll save it.
Okay. Well, no, I'm totally interested in where you're going, but yeah, why don't we start with
this movie is never better than in its opening moments with like the two sailors coming up on like the ridiculous amounts of fog and getting onto this like rocky beach, just discovered that it's littered with dead bodies.
Yeah.
Like that opening for this movie's faults,
Yeah.
that opening is atmospheric and super effective.
Thank you for pointing that out. It really is. I can't even think of that many openings that it's like. I mean, that's because you start out watching these sailors using these long barge poles to like poke at these big rock outcroppings so that they don't like destroy their boat as they move through this fog. that so that literally they can't see what's in front of them until it's literally right in front of them, and so they're just moving slowly, and he'll just go bonk and like knock the rock and move the boat aside. Scary. I mean, I don't know these guys, and I don't know what their life is like, and it's that's really really neat. What did you guys think, by the way, of the miniatures? I mean, the movie opens with you looking at a miniature of the island poking out of the fog, and me personally, it never looked like that miniature never quite looked real, but it looked great.
Yeah, I thought it looked neat.
Yeah, I'm sorry, what's that, Julia?
I thought it looked neat.
Yeah,
Really pretty.
it does. It looks cool. I'm good with it.
Mhm.
Most of this movie was filmed at Shepperton, which is a major studio where they did a lot of different horror movies. So they're in good company. Okay, so where do we start? I'm fascinated by it's the 70s. Drew pointed out that it's weird to think this movie is before the slasher genre really takes hold. There are slasher movies, because I've been hoping that we'll do Horror House, which is also a slasher movie, basically, kind of. But it's from like 1969 or so, and this is 72. Twitch of the Death Nerve, which also is so important to slasher history. That's like a year before this, I guess. I don't think they had any influence on one another. So you're starting to see some of the pieces of the genre come together.
Absolutely, but it's not quite fully there. Like
Right.
this again, that sort of transition from like an earlier type of horror movie, but you could even the reveal of the killer, where he's in the final stages, where you see the son, and he's this sort of monstrously mutated.
Yes.
He's not a normal man. He's
Right.
he's a little bit elevated, and even that feels like we're looking at stuff like obviously the Friday the 13th movies,
Or like Hell
or
Night,
or Funhouse,
Yes.
things like that. But then again, yes, there are teenagers in this movie, but they all get killed before the movie even starts. They're only
Yeah.
around in flashbacks. Most of the people that you're dealing with in this movie are solidly adults, which is not your typical slasher movie victims. And
solid
so
adults with adult jobs and adult issues,
and a whole soap opera worth of drama.
Yeah.
For real.
Let's start talking about the groups. I think first we could talk about the whole teenager plot, because the other weird ass thing about this movie is that it's got two timelines, which I just find bizarre. And why would you bother? Does this movie need to be complicated by flashbacks that slowly reveal a story? I mean, is that
Yeah. Well, so like somebody said, I think Drew was talking about the opening scene with the guys that come onto the island, and they find these dead bodies, and then the dad, the old man, opens a door, and a naked chick kills him because she thinks that he's the killer. But of course, she gets blamed for killing everybody. So she's in kind of catatonic, but back in the mainland, and she's in this being hypnotized by a sciencey guy with some awesome walls of big boards of colored lights that I totally want in my house. I just love them.
Can I ask
And
a thing about that? Is there any forgive my ignorance, but if I've got, and the character's name is Penny, played by Candace Glendenning, and she's put in a chair, she's being watched, she's in a catatonic, whatever, and they're hypnotizing her with blinking lights. Is there any reality to any of this? I know
I mean,
this
who
is what the
knows?
60s.
I don't know what works for hypnosis, but I just think the lights are cool.
Okay. I'm just
but
curious, because
I mean,
yeah, I have no.
there's tons of movies that also use this light therapy, so I think there's some basis in some of it.
There's some therapies that use light and touch,
exactly.
but this is Star Trek crap.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Like,
this is a hypnosis thing, not the EMDR or whatever. But anyway, so she's basically having flashbacks to what happened. So that's how we see the former
Okay,
timeline, like
so
you're talking
I
about.
mentioned a logic lapse that bugged me.
Okay.
This is the stuff with her undergoing the regression
Yeah.
really bothered me because she's remembering stuff that does not happen to her. Like she's supposed to be having memories.
You're saying she's remembering the omniscient
Oh,
Yeah,
wow,
or
that's an
whatever.
excellent
Yeah.
point.
And that
Like,
just
That's funny.
and I'm sure they didn't even, it might have been one of those things that like they cut the movie and suddenly they were like, oh shit, because people, people make mistakes like that. Like I've made mistakes like that. I'm not saying I'm better than the
Yeah,
people that
yeah.
made this movie, but it is a flaw, and it
Yeah,
did
because
like
she's remembering the couple on the beach that have
Yeah.
nothing to do with it. Yeah. I hear
there's
you.
no
Oh,
way
that's
she could
right.
remember that stuff.
Well, no, she's one of the couple. She's the virginal one.
Oh, she's the
who
original one.
yeah,
So then she's
and
remembering stuff that's happening at the house while she's on the beach.
right, because
Okay.
she didn't see Robin Asquith get killed.
Yeah.
And yet, but so I want to stop to just discuss the disappointing nature of the sexuality in this movie. Just to talk about the teens. We'll get to the adults in a minute. So she's not really a teen. This girl looks like she's like close to 30. I don't know, but anyway,
which actress is she?
I'm talking about Candace Glendenning, who plays Penny, the one who survives and who is having the flashback.
She's 18.
Oh, she's 18.
Yeah.
Oh, well, good for her. I apologize. I thought she was old. Anyway, doesn't matter. Anyway, so she's running around with her boyfriend, and they're all Americans, by the way. They're all hippie Americans doing crazy American accents for.
You mean they're not American, but they're doing American accents?
The characters are all American. The actors
Right.
are all British.
Yes.
They're doing American accents, and they're hippies, so they're naked all the time. I don't understand any of this. I think this was just to get him in. I put butts in seats, like Tony said. But she's virginal. She doesn't have sex. So her boyfriend says, "Oh, he makes the moves on her." She goes, "No, I don't do that." And he goes, "But I have needs because I'm a
the
man."
oft use. But what about my needs?
I have
you're
needs.
naked. Come on.
She knows how to take care of her man, though.
So she says, "I know how to take care of a man." And what I'm thinking is, I watched a lot of movies in the 80s. How come he's not taking care of her? Like, why? Like, what?
Because he's that guy.
Because he's that guy. And that's really depressing, and also, who the hell is this for? And I'm not getting anything off of this. They are naked actors. There's literally nothing like there's nothing here that's sexually exciting. It's all just.
That's what I mean by it falls short in being sexy. Like it thinks it's sexy, but it's not right
Well,
there.
I mean, there's a long history though of R-rated movies, but if this is Europe, it's also not as big a deal.
Yeah.
Whereas in the States, like, oh, I don't know, we got to censor that. Lots of shooting. Let's slash away, but naked bodies.
Yeah, but
ooh, can we?
Yeah, but I'm not even talking about the nudity. I'm just talking about the sensuality.
No, I got you, but it's all part of that. Like,
yeah,
it's all wrapped up, and I always remember. That's one of the things I just keep remembering about Weird Wednesdays. Is oftentimes we'd watch a movie where someone had made a movie that I think was supposed to be sexy, but was so often not sexy at all, or kind of repulsive, and you kind of go, I don't want to watch this, and I kind of want to take a shower, and I'm not a prude. But like just the way it's all done was like I don't.
But I guess what
think this is it.
What's troubling to me? No, true, fair. And if you think of most Hammer films of this period, there's a lot less nudity in this movie. But on the other hand, if you look at Lust for a Vampire, which came out in 1971, so not long before this movie, it has ridiculous sex scenes with Ute Stensgaard, but at least he goes down on Ute Stensgaard. I mean, at least we have
I think
attempt at female pleasure.
No, I think you've got a movie that I mean, I don't know. I don't want to second guess anybody who was actually writing it, but oftentimes you'll have a movie where you go, look, we're gonna do this because we think this is what people, well, the movie's not so great, but I saw some boobs,
Yeah,
for a
that's true.
For age. And
yeah.
I mean, I use boobs because of a certain age, right? Like
that's a really good point.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like
apparently that is the thing. That right? Really is.
I mean, Jason, you're just doing a book on tiki and surfer movies and such like that. There's a lot of movies, and some of them end up on Mystery Science Theater. Some of them are just on, and there's a lot of like, okay, here's the point where we have people dancing.
That's
A lot more women dance, but there's
Yes.
guys in beach shorts. So it's but there's a lot of just like, okay, we're all gonna dance and we're all gonna shake whatever we can shake. Why? Because let's go to the movies and watch people shake what they shake and make out in the theater. Maybe like this is our
Yeah.
audience. We kind of know this. This is what makes money. We'll make X amount on this. Not to say that this movie doesn't also contain, like maybe they may be making art as well, but it's
Yeah.
commercial art. But
No, you're right.
that
You're
it just
absolutely
depends
right.
on there's again, that's why there's a lot of cool stuff in here that
Yeah.
I feel like is really interesting. And again, I don't care that there's nudity, but I'm kind of I'm with Julia in that none of it's like pretty good.
Yeah.
Like
That's right.
I
It's
mean, other
not.
than hey, it's like shapely, attractive people, actors,
Yes.
actresses, cool.
Well, and I really feel like they missed an opportunity to have the sciencey people be swingers, because like I say, both of the couples have slept with each other. So like, why not just have it be a thing where, hey, we're all scientists, but we're also swingers? Like,
If
why
they
not?
were swingers, though, there would be no tension, and what they
There's no
wanted,
drama. Yeah.
what they wanted was
Exactly.
drama.
No,
Like
they
They
missed the
want
mark
soap
there too,
opera.
though.
oh, I'm not saying that they didn't, but
So I'm gonna have to look it up. There's gotta be a movie from like the '60s called The Swinging Scientist, right? But there's no way.
At least a porn movie, if nothing else.
No, but I mean, I would, I could picture the trailer for
That
Swinging
does sound like a
Scientist,
60s
like
movie. It really
they
does.
wipes and
done-
like, and he thought he would go to,
Yeah.
what they could
science
have
school, but
done.
then and then there's a beach scene, and I know I see the '60s trailers in my head, and it's just there has to be. I don't know. If not, I'm remembering from another dimension. And
what they could have done, even though they never go as whole on the hog with the Bell, I am mispronouncing this. Why can't I talk right tonight? The devil cult.
Yes.
They never go as whole on the hog with that as I would have liked. And what they could have
Agreed.
done is had like a bunch of perfectly normal couples, and then suddenly you go out there and like they're under the influence of this demon. And you kind of do like a Legend of Hell House.
Legend of Hell House.
Yeah,
you got it. Yes.
Where they all start acting all like horned out and weird, because like there's an implication that there is something supernatural going on, as well as just these people being crazy, especially when you see the killer at the end and he's all mutated.
Yes.
But they don't. It's kind of the thing, like Tony keeps saying, like there's a lot of elements in this movie. If they just beefed it up a little bit,
you know what
you'd
I'm
have a
afraid
much
is
better
the case.
movie.
You really have two choices, and we've talked about this with a million films. There's one, you're going as much stuff is here. We could have even more stuff and make it into a book series or a TV series. The other is you just make a lot less of it, and then like there's enough plot here probably for a couple of books. Because let's face it, the expedition where a professor has gathered several experts in like Phoenician history and some, a mummy guy and a lawyer who has there's always an extra guy on the expedition just to mix it up. He's like, I'm here because I'm a lawyer.
I mean, I just watched this movie like 3 days ago, and I already forgot most of the stuff you guys just mentioned. That's how quickly they dispensed with everything. Like they dispensed with the extra character. I couldn't even remember while I was watching the movie who he was. The disfigured murderer. Like the whole movie, I was expecting it to be him. I knew it was going to be the kid. That's what I expected. But I feel like they could have given so much more time to that. All these different points. The thing with the expedition and the treasures. None of that got as much time as just the teenagers and the people having affairs with each other. Like I don't know. I feel like they could have made any one of those things more substantial.
Yeah. No, you're right. You could have. You could almost. I'm going through this right now, where I wrote a draft of a novel, and then I'm working with a co-writer who is taking it, and she's doing the next draft. And one thing she said was, she goes, "There's enough plot here for 2 books, so I'm cutting this down. It'll be the same length. It's just going to be about half as much plot." And that's cool. Sometimes you need somebody else to do it. What's that?
But let's keep the naked people, because that's
in this movie. Yes. Well, the funny thing, and of course, our adults Drew has it exactly right. It's interesting that this movie is mainly starring the adults, and that is
Well, it's
super strange.
almost like the flashback stuff would be like this could be 2 movies worth of stuff, because like you could
Yeah.
have the flashback stuff be the original movie, and like
Yes.
if this was a later slasher, you'd have the girl that ends up in the psych ward as the final girl, and
Yeah.
then you'd have this as the sequel. So
Right.
it's weird to me how
Yeah.
how the way this is, I don't know, like put together.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't explain. Now, I will tell you that the script went through a number of revisions. There was an original script that the producer liked, and but but several others involved thought that it was too jokey, too much humor in it and stuff. So they did a rewrite and stripped a lot of the humor out. I honestly can't tell you if that would have been good or not. Literally, we have nothing to go on.
Well, as it stands, there's a lot of unintentional humor. So
That's unfortunate. Yeah.
yeah, so like they might. I have a tendency to believe that if you're gonna do something, you might as well have a few jokes in, so you can poke
Absolutely.
fun before somebody else does.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's because of that curiousness of the two plots. You would think that this was based on a novel. You're seeing here those problems that we often see in films that are based on a book, where you're like, man, they're cramming a lot of stuff in here. But no, it's this is just how it's written. Yeah. So uh, let's see, what else did we want to mention? I still like. I kind of enjoyed. I like that this is kind of a completely forgotten movie. It's not really particularly mean-spirited. Like, this isn't some movie where like, man, that movie is so misogynist or racist or gross or sadistic that, not only is it forgotten, but it deserves to be forgotten. This is not like that at all. This is just some 1972 slasher that is often beautiful to look at that I just completely forgot existed, and or that the world forgot existed. So that's kind of cool. If you like deep cuts, this is definitely one.
It's a deep cut with deep cuts.
Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those. It's a little bit of shame that it's for rental. Not to say that you shouldn't pay and get support
Sure.
people, and I do both. But this is the kind of movie that when it comes up and Amazon's like, here's some stuff, I'm gonna check out Tower of Evil if it's for free and watch it, or maybe I watch something on TV that then switches to it.
Yes.
I was watching something else, and it's like, hey, well, up next, Tower of Evil, keep that going. Sure, that sounds cool. That kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it feels like that's something I really enjoy, is discovering kind of hidden gems. And I think, this
Yeah.
has a lot of the stuff that I like, becomes almost, it's weird. It's a weird thing because it has like a treasure, the treasure element, and then the
Yes.
cult element, and it could go, I mean, I guess for whether intentional or not, it never goes exactly where I thought it was going to go for many times. But there's a treasure hunt aspect. There's there's like traps at one point, and is it the cult stuff, like messing with people or causing this? But it's never, all of those things, like I said, just never quite come together, and
are they
the
going to betray
frustrating
one
part.
another,
Right,
and steal the gold for themselves?
Right.
There's several moments.
Well,
when
and then
different
the
people
last 15 minutes it becomes Scooby-Doo all of a sudden.
Yes.
Like,
right.
it's a bunch of people in a creepy locale, like splitting up and trying to solve a mystery.
The most flammable lighthouse you've ever seen.
Well, clearly at some point somebody just poured a stream of kerosene or gas all
that's
around
what's
in a
supposed to be.
circle.
It's not. There's no captioning in this, which unfortunately you could do in a comic book, but not here. So you've got and I would have loved it if a caption had just come up on screen with an arrow pointing to the paraffin wax spilling all over the place. It said liquid paraffin wax
In a perfect circle around the property.
It flows down, it creeps down into the like all around the property, and it creeps down into the caves and gets into all the water in the caves, and it's everywhere. And
By the way, the poor guy that poor stuntman that got set on fire at the end, the suit was fine, but he passed out from the heat
Oh
and
no.
almost
Oh
almost
no,
died.
poor
That
guy.
was so scary. All that fire, I was like, there's a lot of fire. I was really
Right.
worried for those people.
Especially
But there's
considering
fire
that
and then there's more fire. That's what it was
Exactly.
like.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
they come, they go, oh, I guess everything burned down. That's weird. And then, oh my gosh, more fire.
So yeah. So much fire. Um
it's for its faults, I did find this an enjoyable enough movie. Like like sometimes when you're playing cinematic archaeologists and you're kind of digging through and watching lesser known movies, that could be a double-edged sword, because you can end up watching something that's just a slog to
Yeah.
get through.
Yeah.
This was not like that for me. Like,
Right,
I'm
no, I
pointing
agree.
out some of my problems with it, which is to say it's not a perfect movie, but it's not an unentertaining one. Like, it's trashy, and
Yeah.
it's got a good look to it. And if somebody were to say like, oh, I like slasher movies, and mention all the ones from the dozens of slasher movies from the 80s, this would be a good thing to recommend. Say like, hey, well, if you want to see where those movies came from, check out this movie, because you do start to see the building of some tropes that we would later get. And
Yeah.
again, I do find that kind of thing fascinating. Like,
Yeah, well,
I like seeing the way genres come together and progress.
and you've got a lot of like cool, makeup effects and practical things. There's grody corpses that we turn around, and oh no, there's this, and severed limbs, and people running through other
I
people
love
with
the
knives and
melting
swords,
corpse.
and
The melting corpse on the chair is
yeah,
a great corpse, man. That was
all of that stuff
That
looks
was good.
great.
Gross.
And is it effective? Like that scare factor of it. And
Yeah.
the more we talk about it, though, what's interesting is I think it's a lot of what I hear that we hit upon is less of like, this is a bad movie and I can't stand it, and more of, it has enough cool things that it's a shame that they don't, that maybe it's too much of a buffet.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
what we're kind of hitting on, to me, is that if you just kind of centered around, just when you think you're kind of settled in, like, ooh, this is the movie. Look at that. They found the statue, and now, is it Think for the Gold, or like, are they being possessed? What's the stuff with the cult? It kind of goes, no, we're going to get back to this plot that we've set up. There could have been the rewrites, but all of this, I think, what I hear from our critiques is more, I wanted this to be and I've said directly, but I wish that the parts were better, because we all want to like this movie because it's got so many interesting bits. I think if in a world of cinema where not everything, there's much worse, having a movie where it didn't quite come together and people go, wow, that was so evocative in so many places, I wanted it to be cooler in this way. That's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. If I were to choose, I would, maybe this is because I'm an adult, but I would get rid of the teens entirely, basically. I would just have it just be about this snippy, because if you're left with the expedition and the people are sniping at one another and taking drags on their cigarettes and being mean, and
Although that would get rid of my favorite character in the movie, which is the random hard-boiled detective that's trying to
trying to solve what happened.
I mean, I do like
you can have the teens have already be dead. Like you're saying about it being a sequel to a first one, you could, like, Final Girl gives them some information. Now they go back. He's the detective who's got to figure out what happened here. I'm fine with all that.
Well, they almost want to put together a team similar to The Haunting.
Absolutely. Yeah. If this movie is borrowing from anything, it's borrowing from The Haunting.
Because, you have the detective and you've got people who are like, well, I'm an expert in this, and here's my wife who's, done some other stuff. We have this whole thing of like, hey, I put together this expedition. I'm going to pay for it. I want you to go out there and find that spear. Yeah. But, there's other stuff going on, so I'm going to send you all together. So it has, that aspect of, hey, and also I'm putting somebody who may or may not know about the supernatural, but we're not going to
Right.
say that because we don't want to get involved in like, oh, the supernatural real kind of, there's that aspect to it. And
Sure.
also kind of similar to the haunting, right?
It's you're right. There's so it's half the haunt. It's like if the haunting also had a whole other plot about teenagers wandering around the same house like 6 months ago. That's which oddly enough is a lot like the haunting the miniseries, because the miniseries actually has what 6 or 8 hours to play with instead of 90 minutes, and so you can do that stuff and just keep jumping back and forth.
But
There's
also a
also
deep,
yeah.
a family evil.
Yeah,
That's
there's a
but in
whole
this case a
damn
very,
hidden
very
hidden
corporeal.
child mystery.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, there's this whole thing of like there was a family that lived here, and they lived here because it was condemned, and they knew nobody would look for them, and there's a
And then
dead
they got
baby.
possessed by Satan.
Mhm.
It sure seems that way. Yeah.
And the funny thing is that the statue is a Baphomet statue. It's not,
Not
this
Bale. That's
not
funny.
ball. Yeah, like
I don't know the
it's.
first thing about Bale or Ball. Yeah.
I obviously I'm not an expert because I keep butchering the name, but like I know a Baphomet statue when I see one, and I think again that kind of that stuff. One of the reasons why I mentioned Hammer, like all that stuff feels like it's came right out of The Devil's Rides Out,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
maybe one of the latter Dracula sequels, which leaned really far into the Satanism thing.
Yeah.
Like it's it seems like almost they are like, well, what's hot in horror movies right now, devil worship. So we got to have
Yeah.
some devil worship in this.
Because you could even do a movie, where you get to the island and slowly you get corrupted. No matter who's on it, slowly gets corrupted by this force,
Yeah.
and that's why things turn worse and worse and worse, or why people are more snarky and evil, Prince of Darkness style stuff happening.
Absolutely. But I
Um,
mean, this is for what
but it
it's worth.
doesn't do that
It's a year
either.
before The Exorcist. I mean, that's the
Right?
amazing thing. So that hasn't.
But Rosemary's Baby had come out.
That's true.
Yeah.
And
Like
yeah. You are so right. That's so true. Night of the Living Dead has come out, so you have the melting corpse looks a lot like the Night of the Living Dead corpse, but the spinning chair looks like the Psycho 1962 spin. There's
Mm.
there's all kinds of stuff. I love the seduction of the young man who is their helmsman that comes with them, and then I don't care for the perfectly boring sex scene that follows. But it's a neat, it feeds into the whole drama that that's just how bored these scientists are on this island is that she's going, and she also apparently she can't help herself. She just literally just this is a guy that she has not slept with yet. If they didn't start killing people, then Hamp would undoubtedly be
I just
next.
really disliked the character of the kid that she sleeps with. I thought he was really weird and creepy the way he looked. I did not like him at all. I found him just so unsexy.
His character's name is Brom. Is Brom. He's supposed to be a strapping youth that is tempting to
Mm-mm.
this scientist lady.
He looks like he's scared to be having sex with her.
That's an interesting
Just the
observation.
look of on his face. He was just like,
Once
I don't know.
again, it's long and boring. I mean,
I just kept
it's
calling him Bargain Basement Mick Jagger.
yeah. Oh
Yeah,
no.
I was
The
gonna
Mick
say he's very
Jagger.
much supposed to have the rock look, the very
Yeah,
Rolling
for sure.
Stones.
Yeah, he's kind of he's got, well, since his hair is black, it's more of a Jim Morrison thing, and Robin Asquith really does look a lot like Mick Jagger for what it's worth. And but he gets run through with a spear. They're moving back and forth so quickly in timelines that sometimes you literally forget which timeline you're in while you're watching it, or I did anyway. you know and so the solution to everything winds up being the scientists go and investigate this place where these teenagers were killed. We know that Act 3 is going to move towards the caves because they keep saying if there is a murderer hiding on this island, and we think there is because we don't think that teenage girl could have done him, then there are caves. caves. And so we know that Act 3 is going to be down in the caves. And down in the caves is where they find the big ceremonial weapons and the big statue that they say is of Baal, but that Drew points out is actually of Baphomet. And and we finally find out who the real killer is, because there's a mystery, which is that is the killer the brother of the sailor who was the husband who was on this island, or is the killer somebody else? And as
Well,
they kind of
there's basically three options. There's the guy, what's the brother's name? The one who's in the boat, the one
Hamp.
who comes over, Hamp. So it's either Hamp or his
Yep.
brother or the son Michael.
Yeah.
Those are the only options, really. And so, but my money was on Michael, because it just seemed like if he's raised, like they're clearly hiding him away, so there's probably something wrong with him anyway.
Yes.
He's raised on this island. Maybe he's gonna be, like
again, just
homicidal.
like isn't that the plot of Hell Night, Tony? The one with Linda Blair, where there's a hidden killer underneath this college, and he has tunnels and stuff.
Oh, it's been a while.
Yeah.
I kept coming back to the movie. Oh, now I'm drawing a blank. I feel like an idiot. Where they all go to the island, and the killer's like the boatman, and there's like he kills their dog, and then all that happens, and I can't remember the name of it. And I know we covered it. It may have been on a Hangout episode, but I kept coming back to that one.
You're not talking about Zombies of Moritao.
No. It was more of a slasher movie.
Jason's like, it has been a full 2 or 3 months since I've mentioned Zombies of Moritao.
No.
Okay.
I thought we'd done it. Oh man,
we may have.
Sorry, but
give me some more elements of it.
But basically, it's the one where they have their reunion. All the women come together on the island, and they're hanging out. And there's killer, but he's also eventually he's like it ends up like, oh, it's the boatman.
Wait. You and I watched and did a Hangout episode on 5 Desperate Women? That's unbelievable to me. With Stephanie Powers, the women women. Well, maybe you and I watched it separately, but it's 5 women. They go on a college reunion. There's a dog. One of them befriends the dog, but somebody kills the dog. And it turns out that the killer is one of the 2 guys who piloted the boat.
Yeah, I watched it with another friend, but that's what I kept coming back to on this, actually.
Wow, that's so interesting. I did not get 5 Desperate Women's vibes off of this, but now I wish I had, because that's one of my favorite movies. I mean,
but you know what I mean, like with the reveal in the boat, that whole setup of like, let's bring a bunch of people there.
Yes.
And,
no, you're absolutely right. And then somebody blows up the boat.
It could be,
I did. Yeah, when they blew up the boat, I said, oh, it's funny. That's just like in 5 Desperate Women. I really did say that. Yes. Wow. Yeah. Great minds, Tony. But no, we've not done an episode.
And I feel bad because I didn't remember the title, but that's where my brain is right now. So
there's no
anybody who's listening to this, like, oh, once again, they don't remember important details. Sorry, you win. Whoever you are, you win a no prize. That's on me. That's on my brain being stupid. So,
oh man, we got to.
There are podcasts that are better researched, perhaps, but I'm going by feel. But yeah, that's the impression, and I feel stupid because I kept. And between time, I didn't look it up either because I got so busy with everything else. I'm like, oh, I gotta do this before the podcast, and then here I am.
I'm glad you mentioned it, and it can be difficult to go, oh, what's the movie with some women at a retreat on an island and there's a dog? I mean,
Oh no, I would have found it. I meant to do that, and then it came up again in my head, and I go, because I thought we had covered it, so maybe we didn't. But
it's
maybe
so
we at least
weird to me that we
it.
didn't, because I was just posting about 5 Desperate Women just like last week. That is really super duper funny.
It's in the ether. It's in the.
I know. Isn't that wild? I think what's going to happen is my next novel is going to be an homage to 5 Desperate Women, and we'll see where that goes.
You're missing out if you don't also add a Baphomet masquerading as another demon.
Maybe that's the answer. Yeah. Golly.
Go for broke.
Yeah. I just want to take a moment to say I love the fashion in this movie. I mean, I love the stuff that the girls are wearing. They're all dressed like various versions of Daphne from Scooby-Doo. I mean, really.
Scooby-Doo thing comes back, yeah.
I also thought if you couldn't tell white women apart, the 2 main women look so similar to one another that it can be disorienting at times.
Well, that's why their husbands are like,
Oh, did I accidentally sleep with her? I thought it was you, sweetie.
I thought it
Oops.
was you.
I knew when she said "zip me" that it maybe not have been you, but at the time I just had to go with it.
Right.
Who am I to say no to such a
Oh my
amazing,
gosh.
amazing? Come on.
And I have to say I love this is going to be the most random thing, but because I'm such a fetishist about like details of mid-century stuff, I love the little breakfast nook that they have like the night after they get their assignment, but before they embark, they're all at this hotel breakfast nook, and there's these big curved windows looking out on this garden, and it's really cool. You really feel the sense of place, considering this is all just Shepperton Studios nonsense, you know. So cool stuff. Uh, all right. I don't know. We've probably said as much as can be said about Tower of Evil. I mean, is there anything that is worth bringing up that I may? I mean, I feel like we've just made passing reference to the fact that yeah, there's a mystery here about who was the killer, but is there anything we didn't touch on?
Wish that we had gotten a better look at the monster makeup at the very end.
Yeah.
That's like it kind of looks like they were going for the same thing as the creature in Funhouse, where he's got sort of like his head's like very almost triangular.
Yes. Yeah.
And like I know that there is the of thought that like, oh, the less you show of your monster, the more frightening it is. And Lord knows they probably didn't have an enormous budget for makeup effects, but I just wanted to see the monster. Like I was intrigued by
Yeah.
what we did see. And I
Yeah.
would have if there's any stills out there of the makeup, I somebody has got him, I would love to take a closer look at that.
I like the if we're talking about stuff that we enjoyed, I liked the sympathy towards the monster, even though he's a terrible killer. I liked that he plays the flute and that freaks everybody out. Oh no, it's the father who plays the flute, isn't it? There's just oh gosh, yeah, there's actually two killers. So one of them plays the flute and rocks the corpse and is ostensibly nicer and kills one girl simply by frightening her until she falls backwards off of the top of the lighthouse. So yeah, that's one of the mysteries is that there's actually two killers at work here. But I like all that stuff. I like the sound of the flute on the wind. I think that's
It's a little
that-
reminiscent of Son of Frankenstein.
yeah.
I don't remember. Did the monster back somebody off of a? I just can't remember. Did that happen in there?
No, I'm saying Igor plays.
Oh
It's
yeah.
not a flute, but it's some kind of odd horn type thing.
Yeah.
In the way when you describe it, if you were just describing a scene and the way things worked, you could almost lean it into a Lovecraft kind of thing where like, oh, the boy isn't right and it's because of the cult that's on the island, and
Yeah.
but it doesn't go there either.
Well,
it's
not
interesting.
nearly
It's
enough is
interesting.
done with that cult because they don't get down there to those caves until like 10 minutes before it's over. It's
Right.
just so strange how much is here.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
But it is fascinating that as you describe, if you take this movie apart
Yeah.
and describes different parts, you could tell it would be like kind of like the elephant joke.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you could, oh, hey, there's scientists and treasure hunters and a family and soap opera drama because they're all there on Horror Island,
Right.
and, Snape Island, and the dark secret, and some kid who's hiding, and because the young guy's like, oh yeah, I came here often, but I mean, I never saw anything, didn't do anything. It's
Well, that's weird.
don't even,
Yeah.
so it's interesting that there is so much going on. Not every movie that kind of doesn't gel quite as well has so much to discuss, I think.
It says a lot
That's
to me as a
fascinating.
writer about don't overburden your plots. Just because you have 10 good ideas doesn't mean you need to put all 10 good ideas into this one thing.
Or do
Maybe
you? Dun, dun,
maybe
dun.
well like
Here we
Niles
are
Crane
discussing
said,
it, right? I don't
yeah.
know.
Well, it's true. Made it this far. I mean, Niles Crane had this comment on Frasier where he was like, I was thinking that if less is more, then wouldn't more be even more?
Right.
I love that. That would be the argument for put it in. Let's just see what happens. Yeah. Okay. Let's get our final thoughts on the horror of Snape Island, also known as Tower of Evil, or what did they call it? Beyond the Fog. Man,
Or whatever the zombie thing was in German. Tower of the Living Corpses, Terror Tower of the Zombies. It has so many names.
that's a heck of a title.
So many names. Um,
Okay. Yeah. So we'll start with Julia. Julia, what are your final thoughts?
yeah, I mean, I think that what I've come around to is what Drew said, which is that that it had a lot of potential, but it had too many different kinds of potential, and like they didn't decide to just focus on a couple of things. Like they kind of just were like, let's stick a little bit of this, a little bit of this. So there were some interesting bits and some neat effects, some neat themes, but yeah, I just think it kind of fails on several levels. So sorry, people who
No,
made the
thank you
movie.
very much. I appreciate you. I appreciate you watching it. Drew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, again, it's a fun movie. It's interesting because of its place and the progression of horror movies, and it's got a lot of atmosphere on its own. Like I do think it's a lot of fun, like, because like when we go in to talk about these movies, I said this on an episode a couple of like, I watch a movie very differently when I'm watching it for the show than if I'm just watching it, because like I think if I were to sit down just to watch this for entertainment, I definitely wouldn't be as hard on it as
Oh,
I'm being.
interesting.
Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm pointing out the flaws, but like I just want to say, like, it's that none of that means that it's not worth your time. Like
Right.
it is fun. So if you're looking for a horror movie to check out, I think that you could do far worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. If I were showing a series like at a movie theater, at the Alamo or something, I can see including this for various reasons because it's this interesting missing link. Yeah. Tony, what about you?
Yeah, I think I agree. Kind of said as much, but this is definitely the kind of movie I watch late at night when I'm just kind of perusing movies, and I enjoy that discovery.
Yeah.
And in many ways, I think all the interesting bits are here, and I wish I had liked it. Like I said at the beginning, I wish I had liked it more.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a bunch of stuff that just like logic wise and just kind of how it moves that didn't all come together.
Yeah.
But
Very good.
it has all the bits of tons of stuff I like. I always, every once in a while, I always liken it to like a sandwich where you can't figure out, like, I like the taste of this, but there's something in these ingredients that I don't like. And it's a shame, and that's kind of where this lied for me, which is unfortunate because it's got a lot going for it, in my opinion.
Very good. Thank you. I think you guys have said, and I've also interjected everywhere. So I think you've said everything that I could possibly say. I really am glad that we watched this movie, nevertheless, as part of the podcast, because it was kind of cool to follow up the Fog with it. And we're gonna have to discuss offline because I know that we discussed what was next, but I can't remember now. I can't remember what we were supposed to discuss because I know it was Fog, Tower of Evil, and I don't remember what came after that. So I think we're gonna go back to the drawing board.
If only there was a movie called Tower of Fog that we would loop back around.
I mean, we have to look at like what people have recommended on the show,
Mhm.
and
Is there a Fog of
other-
Evil?
I would, I want to know. It seems to me there should be like a Tomb of the Blind Dead kind of movie from Spain that probably involves the word fog somewhere. You would think, because there's a lot of those Templar movies, but I don't know how much I want to force you guys to keep watching grungy Euro trash.
I'm just kidding.
So,
Yeah.
um,
I also don't want to be forced to watch a lot of grungy Eurotrash.
yeah. I mean, you could grow to love it. I mean, as I have.
Yeah, I think having been married to you for
how long have you been
almost
together?
30 years, I still haven't grown to love it. I don't think that's going to happen.
Although if it's foggy enough in the movie, you probably don't notice as much of the grunge or the Eurotrash. It just depends on how much fog is in it, how much it hides.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. All right, let's get our endorsements. Julia, you start. And I don't even know if we've. I feel like I don't even remember. I don't know what you've been watching. I haven't been watching anything. So tell me, what would you endorse?
I don't know. I was trying to think if there's anything new because, as we talked about before, Jason and I are late to the party of Schitt's Creek, and so we've been watching that and really enjoying it a lot. But I think, gosh, there's a new Law and Order of a new old Law and Order, a new original Law and Order season,
Yeah.
and that's fun. We're excited about that. There's new episodes, so it's basically new episodes of things that I've been watching for a long time. New episodes of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, who's just awesome, hilarious. It's a great show if you haven't watched it. New episode of The Equalizer with Queen Latifah post Chris Noth getting fired. So Jada Pinkett Smith is on it
Hmm.
now. So I don't know. I'm just kind of excited about new episodes of things that I already was into, but I haven't really discovered much that's brand new. We did go see Uncharted, which is the Tom Holland, Mark Wahlberg movie, and it's fun. It's probably more fun if you actually played the video games, which we did not. But it's entertaining for sure. So yeah, I think that's what I've watched, and unfortunately, I haven't been reading much of late. So yeah, that's all I got.
That's really good. Thank you. Drew, what about you?
Well, first off, so about a year or so back, Shout Factory announced they were doing a Blu-ray of one of my all-time favorite monster movies, which is Alligator from 1980. It is a movie I watched so many times on TV as a kid, but it doesn't seem to be streaming anywhere. Like you can't really seem to find it, or at least you couldn't when they announced the Blu-ray. So I ordered it, and then I promptly forgot about it. And then the other day, flash forward like 6 months later, I opened my door to find that I have a package on my front door, and it's the Blu-ray for Alligator. And I have already watched this movie. It is such a comfort food movie to me. I've already watched it like 3 times since getting the Blu-ray. It's got great special features as expected from Shout Factory, including a commentary by the late Robert Forrester. Such a fun movie. I hope we get around to doing it on the podcast at some point because I just enjoy the hell out of it. But I also feel like I've now learned a lot more about it through exploring this wonderful Blu-ray set. The other thing I want to endorse is I'm actually having a lot of fun going back and watching King of the Hill with my wife. Because Jamie is from New York and she has never really seen a lot of King of the Hill. She's not that familiar with it. So, we've been watching it and, working our way through the mini seasons. And I remember distinctly saying to Jamie before we watched the first episode, I was like, just so you know, this isn't a cartoon, it's a documentary.
Yeah, I remember when I first saw it, like first couple episodes. Oh, wow, okay.
It really
Seriously, totally.
nails, Texas in the way a lot of other things don't. And it walks a tricky tightrope because like it can be, kind of poking fun / critical at times, but it's never spirited to its characters, and I really admire about it. So it's such a good show, and it's all of it's on Hulu. So if you looking for something to rewatch, King of the Hill is excellent. I'm going to echo Julia's endorsement of The Marvelous Miss Maisel. We've been enjoying the new season, or I always think of that show though, like the main character on that show reminds me so much of Jamie. So like I always just like it's like watching a show about my wife. So so I get this extra kick out of it.
Oh, that's great.
When watching it. But yeah, the new season's been terrific so far. So that's what I've been about this last week.
Wow, that's fantastic. Tony, Do you have anything that you've watched?
Yeah, several things. First and foremost, though, just today, I wanted, and I found out that a director I know from Fantastic Fest, who's just super cool, really great person, really awesome director. Her movie, Maddie Doe, her movie, The Long Walk, is out. On Vinegar Syndrome's putting out the Blu-ray, and this is a movie I'd like to cover at some point. And also, if there was ever a chance to have Maddie on as just to, either through an interview or just to hang out and talk about horror movies, she's really cool. Really got involved with Fantastic Fest. Is just somebody you want to hang out with, who really embraced it, and she's just a really awesome person. I find her movies, the thing I keep coming back to is I find them to, she has a gift for making a movie that's very tactile, is how I view it. Like I want to touch, like I want to reach to the screen in the way she films things. And there's a lot of different genre stuff happening in The Long Walk. The Vinegar Syndrome is putting it out, and I think I'm gonna have to get one for sure, because I think she's really cool. It's taken a long time. That's the other thing about these festivals. Not everything gets distribution. Especially not distribution here in the States. Some things come to video on demand, some things for rent, some things show up, but not everything does. And there's a bunch of movies where I just have to go, wow, I wish people could watch this. I talk about them or whatever. The Long Walk has been one of these. It's been a long time coming to get here. And I found out that I forgot which studio is putting out, but Lies of the Fox Fairy. Have you seen that?
No, I know that I've heard the name.
Oh, it's so great. Drew, I think you and Jamie would also enjoy Lies of the Fox Fairy a lot.
Okay.
A woman who is there's a ghost. She can see ghosts and she can talk. She sees this one. There's a ghost who's trying to affect things. It's basically a rock singer who who's manipulating things. It's really great. I really enjoy it. That's coming out, I noticed, on Blu-ray, so I'm super stoked. I have to buy that for sure. I forgot which company is putting that out. I have to double check, but I know The Long Walk is on Vinegar Syndrome, so I was just looking at that. I also just watched the Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, which is, I recommend with some caveats. It's a weird thing to me because I really like the first two Resident Evil games, especially. Huge fan. I like some of the other ones past that. Like I like the franchise in general. But the first two are really my thing. Like that, the second one is just amazing to me. So seeing a movie where they tried to it's kind of a greatest hits of the first three games. They change up some of the way the characters are and stuff. It's a weird kind of baffling thing where I like it and I think the atmosphere is great, and they recreated tons of bits of the game, and that was neat. But it's a strange thing because people, depending on when you got it, when you grew up, you may forget the game is a past, especially the first two. But the first one is actually even more so the first one. If you read about it, it's a pastiche of just like every horror movie that the creators loved. So there's a weird pop eating itself kind of thing to this movie and the games where they, because this movie also makes a couple of really kind of fun references to other horror movies that maybe weren't in the game but were adjacent to it, but then in the space of how things happen in later games. And so it's a weird thing. Like, I don't know, again, much like the movie we discussed tonight, I don't know if it gelled all the way for me because it had a lot of potential. I think it would have made a better, like, several, like 2 or 3 movies.
Yeah.
But what they got right about the stuff that's like the game was really good. And the other bits that kind of didn't gel as much left me more confused than kind of angry, because I think there were some missed opportunities. I think it just didn't have enough space to breathe. And so I think if you're a fan of the games, it may be a little hard, but I think the things they get right are actually really cool and interesting. And there's some cool effects actually too. There's a creature effect that I really like close to the end that really worked for me. But there's also some really kind of dodgy CG. So it's I don't know. They spent their money in certain places. And finally, not to go on too long, but I was watching a bunch of Buck Rogers serials because I do that late at night because I have
Oh,
insomnia.
cool. I'm so glad to hear that.
And I like watching a lot of serials, but one thing it's funny because we always talk about, oh, this is the age of comic book movies.
Yes.
Those were comic book movies. Like we've
Yeah.
had these for like a
Yeah.
really long time. It's cyclical.
That's really
And
so
people
true.
forget about this, but these were like the suit, the costumes are close to the costumes in the comics
Yes.
with the collar and it's like, so we kind of forget that as outlandish as the serial costumes are and of a time, the acting and also, gender roles definitely, hey, it's women, it's,
Sure.
burly guy. Although, there's a lot of things where you're like, there's some hidden Hollywood stuff in there.
Yeah.
Those guys are pretty close, and must have been, but you fulfill the roles that you're allowed to at the time, right? But I thought it just struck me that how much we make of the age of comic book movies and comic book TV, and this was these were serials. These were, hey, come see this rollicking comic adventure. And we tend to forget how far back that
That's an excellent point.
tradition goes. So that's one thing I was thinking late at night as I couldn't sleep, watching Buck Rogers series.
Beautiful.
So there's several on Amazon. I mean, or maybe no, it's Tubi actually, I think.
Yeah. Both of those. I mean, yeah, and I keep whenever I think of I think of the Phantom Empire, which is one of my favorites. Where instead
like
of Buck
Phantom
Rogers,
Empire a
it's
lot.
Roy Rogers.
Yeah.
No, I'm
Tanks
sorry.
and robots.
It's not Roy Rogers. It's Gene Autry.
Yeah.
Gene Autry fights an undersea kingdom, and
I really like that one. I'm just definitely thinking it's because I saw that on Matinee at the Bijou.
Me
back
too.
when I was young.
Absolutely.
But I enjoy. There's a comfort food, just fun to that one in particular. I totally agree with you.
They are.
And as
oh my gosh,
ridiculous as some of it looks, I really like that they were really trying something.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have the budget to always pull it off. But maybe they did, because there are what we think of as cool is different now, right?
Yes.
And so I tend to think that, that's a lot of, even my very conservative grandfather, who actually, it was funny to me that he did not like comic books. He did not like his kids reading it, grandkids. But later in his life, he admitted, he became a TV repairman and was really into science and, all the electronic stuff. But he admitted that as a kid, some of his friends were playing, he grew up poor. My great grandparents immigrated from Sicily, but while his friends, some of his friends were playing, cowboys, and he had a rocket ship he'd made out of like corn cob or something, Buck Rogers was his thing. So as much as sometimes we seemed apart, we had that through line, and that always struck me. I didn't know this until way later in his life, but I thought that was fascinating, especially since he also hated, didn't want like all this comic book stuff, and yet there was that kernel of sci-fi adventure, which I guess is probably why he took me to see Flash Gordon whenever I saw it in the theater.
Right. It's just occurring to me, by the way, that there are probably some lists. We've been talking about this, and I've been thinking of maybe we could do some stuff that like goes well back to the 40s. Maybe there's some way of like tackling some serials that would be interesting. But I don't want to watch like a 9-hour serial, so I don't know exactly.
We could always do the
it.
Phantom Creep that has Bela Lugosi in it.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, there's also the movie versions of these.
That's true.
So that's
a really good
what I've
point.
been watching, is they're kind of compilations, because we forget this. I mean, the serials are pretty short, so when they're strung together, they're not as
well.
long.
And just like Salem's Lot, I mean, they turn it into a feature-length film. You're exactly right. Yeah.
And those are some of the ones I've been watching. I don't know. I think there might be a cut of the Undersea Kingdom like that, but it's still longer. I mean, it's a little longer than maybe a movie, but probably shorter than a few of our podcasts.
Undoubtedly, I'm sure that's the case. So what I wanted to mention is, first of all, I watched, of course, Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched, which we've talked about before, the history of folk horror. And there's so many movies in there that I've seen, and there's so many movies in there that I've never seen, that I'm like, it's just an embarrassment of riches. There's so many films that I'm like, man, I got to see that, and I got to see that. A lot of them British that I just have never seen before, and I'm totally interested in like kind of digging in and maybe selecting 3 or 4 that we could do.
Dude, get the box set. That box set is amazing.
that movie, that documentary, because I watched that not long after watching the recent Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
And, them tagging the original with that folk horror title really hit upon what I felt was absent from the new one, that I was having a hard time putting my finger. I was like, there's something missing from this that keeps it from really feeling like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. And that was it. It didn't feel like a folktale at all. And because like for better or for worse, most of the other movies have that. And the original definitely has that.
It
So
won't
like,
surprise you to hear I've only seen the original. I've not seen any of the
what?
sequels. Any of the sequels or the new remake. I have
Well,
not.
there's well, the new one's not a remake, it's a rebootquel. But
Okay.
the yeah. But
I'm with you. It's a legacy sequel. I get it.
yeah, but just barely. But the honestly, Jason, like the first one and the second one are the only ones that I think you would get any enjoyment out of. Like, I think the others, like, unless you just were kind of gaga for the idea of backwoods cannibals, I don't think would do a whole lot for you.
Fair. All right. Yeah. Okay. And maybe that's something else we should put on our list as a possibility, is maybe the original and the rebootquel, and see how that
Done
goes.
the original.
I mean, we could, now that
Yeah.
now that the Blu-ray's out, and I'm sure it's somewhere on demand, at the very least, the top of the folk horror pile in that movie, we could do like Eyes of Fire.
There was a vampire or Vertilac movie that that's on available to purchase on Amazon pretty cheaply, that they talked about on that it's called Night of the Devils, and I was pretty interested in checking that out.
Yeah. Like I said, I do recommend. It's not cheap, but boy, is there just a jam-packed full of awesome just stuff. I mean, I haven't even made it through much at all, but the box set that they did and it's beautifully packaged. I mean, kudos to Kayla. I never, it was always fun hanging out with her. We were hanging out at the Draft House of Colorado, and it was always great. She's an awesome person, but to read what she's written and see the stuff she's put together and done in film, it's always cool when somebody who's cool is putting out such really awesome stuff. I can't say enough good things about that, and it's just cool, Cool people doing cool
I am
stuff.
looking at the price tag on that box set.
Yeah. Well, there was the super duper super one, but even the not as super duper one is not cheap. But boy, I mean, it is.
It's
what you get for what you pay for is amazing, but it is not cheap.
If I was skiing on money, to use Jason's own phrase, I would get this in a heartbeat. But I am not. And
I hear you.
Wow. That is cool. Don't get me wrong. Yeah.
Wonderful. I also wanted to mention Download, which is DOWNLOWD, which is a podcast that's been around actually for like 6 weeks or a couple of months, but it covers it's the story of Harry Knowles and Ain't It Cool News. And I've been listening, and I've talked to Tony a little bit about this. We've been listening to it, and it's so interesting and complicated because Tony and I were there. We were programming and hosting a lot of movies at the Alamo Draft House back in the day. And, I always felt only barely tangential to the Harry Knowles story, but we were around for all those button-umathons. And
yeah, I mean, and I was way less tangential. I went to every button-umathon that was there, whether I was in the initial thing, sometimes I was on standby, a host of ways.
Yeah.
But I was at every one. At the Halloween parties and all kinds of. I mean, it's
and I didn't do
it's
any
a
of those.
Complicated
Halloween,
and strange tale. Like that just was an unfortunate thing the way
it all felt.
And I don't know. It's way more complicated than I want to get at the end of this.
We don't have to get into it right now.
But
I
I
just want
definitely
to say
it's interesting. The podcast is interesting not only in that it solidifies things that I kind of knew, but I knew a lot of the people who were the people either interviewed or part of the players, and also some of the stuff that gets glossed over.
Yeah.
So you and I were part of that. Again, the initial buttonomathon, they kind of touch on it, but it was kind of a different beast than what was described, and I think that's fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, it's a heck of a lot of work that these guys have done to pull this information together, So no matter it's as with any topic that you were there personally for, there's always nooks and crannies that you could chase down and spend and blow up and spend more time on. Anyway, fascinating to listen to, and with any luck, Tony and I are going to interview that guy. We'll see how that goes. I hope we get to make that happen. Gosh, so it has been so fun to discuss Tower of Evil, and to also discuss all these interesting things that people have been watching and listening to. I'm so happy about it. Thank you, everybody, and I can't wait to figure out what the heck we're going to discuss next, because there's so many wonderful ideas, and I don't know what it is. But good night. Thank you,
Night.
everybody. Bye.
Right,
Have a good week.